the cycling, the Rienzi Classic for the cycling, all of the winners for the 20K marathon, which came off, the 5K walk, as well as the 20K walk, the Calypso, Labor Day Calypso competition, the quiz, Gasparolo Primary, first time ever winners of the quiz competition. The fact that we were still able to have all these Labor Day activities, the cycling, the marathon, the Calypso, the quiz, one has to show respect to the trade union movement. Because what I'm very sure about, no business could have taken the hit that trade unions took last year into this year and still be able to deliver to the population these activities.
Something very interesting I was talking to you about, something that stood out to me was a newspaper report which quoted Comrade Roger when saying that he called on the public to protest against the proposal to raise the retirement age from 60 to 65.
Sure.
And you've just brought it to my attention that Barbados's retirement age is 67. What are your thoughts on the fact that government plans to increase the age?
Well, I mean, first of all, let me just put what he said in the context of unveiling the truth. And what he was trying to show is that in the same economy where you have some small groupings making hundreds of millions of dollars, the austerity measures and the burden of adjustment is falling on ordinary people. So you would have worked, let's say, 40 years of your life. You're reaching 60, approaching 60, where you can begin to really enjoy your retirement. And now you're being told, no, you have to work for an additional 5 years. It's almost as though you want people to work till you die, because yes, we have an aging population, but think about it. A lot of people have passed on between 60 and 65. So if it was 65, they would have died in their jobs. And a lot more even between 65 and 70. So how much time do you have to enjoy your twilight years? And what has happened is the society has not put things in place for people over 60 in terms of being engaged, being involved. And we were talking about that earlier. It is the continuity of the plantation system. So it's like when you bring the slaves and the indentured laborers, you work them till they're old and then you pack them up in a corner. That still remains. We've never put systems and mechanisms in place as to how retirees can now continue to make a contribution, but not by working 8 hours again.
Have them as mentors.
And you know, we were talking at the last occasion about contract. So you know what they do? You rehire the retirees back on contract, and so leaving no room now for young people to enter the workplace.
Would you agree? Would you agree that there's an aging workforce?
Well, yeah, because of breakthroughs in medicine and so on, people are living longer. That is true, but the answer can't be because people living longer, you must work them longer. I have a difficulty with that. It should not be that way. In fact, one would have contributed, as I said, 40 years. Let's say you work from 20 to 60. That's 40 years of your life.
That's a long time
working, making your contribution. So what is wrong now? Even if you live from 60 to 80, 85, to enjoy at least 25 years of that in your twilight years. What is wrong with that? And you can make other contributions. And therefore, it is for the society to find ways for people to make other contributions and not to work them longer. Now, they talk about the funds in the NIS. We all know. Politicians and governments have used the NIS as part of
it's their claim to secure the NIS fund.
And what it really is their inability to manage the fund properly. And so if you increase retirement age, you don't have younger people coming into the workplace. You therefore, what in fact you do is you deny opportunities to younger people to make a contribution. So younger people now have to wait longer, and it will have an impact in terms of youth unemployment, which is already a problem.
Yes, I think it stands at 4% or 4.5%.
Well, youth unemployment, of the 4%, of course, majority, or a lot of it, let's say 49 to 50% are young people, right? So what we have to do, rather than have people work longer, is one, we have to manage it better. We have to really root out corruption, and we have to find more apprenticeship programs which can enable more and more young people to come into the system and therefore make their contribution.
Do you think 60 is a good age to retire?
I think 55 is better.
I was actually thinking 55.
55 is even better, right? And as I said, it is about how does a society find other means and mechanisms to have people continue to contribute post-retirement, and without, in effect, denying young people the opportunity to join the workforce. In that way, both sides will be able to strengthen each other, because now I'm still making a contribution, because we all know when you're 55 you're still fairly young, but and you will want to make a contribution, and therefore you can do so by having strong mentorship programs, apprenticeship programs, training programs, so that you can give back in that sense, and then young people get the skills that are required in order to make a very positive and strong contribution to the labor force.
And speaking about retirement, we would have seen the introduction of a bill which seeks to give the government and the upper heads, for lack of a better term, an increase in pension, and not the public servants.
I mean, how do you justify sending thousands of people home?
Yeah.
Prices are increasing, hitting ordinary people, because you have to pay more for rent. You have to pay more if you have a mortgage.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is rent. You have to pay more for transportation. You have to pay more for groceries. You have to pay more for clothing. Your life, your quality of life is being reduced. And in the face of that, you're sending me home without any compensation. And in the face of that, the political elites are saying, well, you know, we're going to increase our pension. I mean, how can we are certainly staged for social anarchy, you know, because there's only so much people can take with regards to how people are treated, the imbalance, the inequality, where some people are treated with great privilege, whilst the majority are treated as, well, this is your lot in life. As I said, it's just a continuation of the plantation. Laboring classes have to find themselves spending 2 hours in traffic, getting to work, facing a boss with all that boss missing is a whip, have to work. Now there are people working 10 hours, and there are even instances where companies are trying to introduce a 12-hour work day in effect, which is what they're doing by saying 12-hour shift. It's a 12-hour work day that they're trying to put back in place. All of that is happening, and then the elites then come and tell you, the political elites, the MPs, well, you know, we are going to give ourselves a pension increase. Imagine, I can't remember who said it, but one of them said, I think it was the AG himself, said that judges are dying in poverty with pensions of $3,000 a month, and he's so concerned. I'm sorry, thousands of people are dying in poverty in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
So where is the concern? And if you recall, in one of the dailies, it is reported that he said that they will not apologize for the increased pension, and that the wider society was not their priority. And this is reported that that is what he said.
Very interesting developments there.
And you know, you even have workers right now, for example, talk about this AG who makes, I want to make this clear. So you have the AG, he's saying he's not apologizing. Now, in the instance of UE workers, they are now still they're still on 2011 salaries. Okay. So their negotiations, of course, broke down. It's reached to the court. It's stretching. It's going on for years now, their negotiations. It's in the court, ready for a trial. Do you know what happened? The Attorney General under the IRA intervenes in the matter, therefore delaying the matter even further. So the same Attorney General, who is not apologizing for giving themselves an increase in pension, intervenes in the negotiations for UE workers to delay the settlement of their negotiations even further. And where the hypocrisy lies is here. This is the same government that was in opposition when during the tea and tech negotiations, the Attorney General, the then Attorney General, intervened in the negotiations whilst it's at the court. Now, when a negotiations reach the court, you must know that this is after maybe 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
It's in the court. You have to wait for your court date. You get your court date. You're ready to
It's
go
a
to
very
trial.
long and tedious process.
And on top of that, the Attorney General
You
intervened
prolong it.
and therefore delayed even further.
Yeah.
So the Attorney General then intervened in the tea and tech negotiations. And you know who condemned them? Condemned the then Attorney General? Of course, then in opposition. I remember the current Minister of Labour, back then she had a talk show program, and every week talking against this intervention by the Attorney General. Okay, they're now in government. Not only did the Attorney General stay in the tea and tech negotiations, but now you now have the Attorney General intervening in the UE negotiations. UE workers are on more or less the lower end of the economic ladder, right? I'm talking about administrative staff. I'm not talking about the lecturers. And they perform human service to ensure that our young people are educated to come out to become professionals. And you have them working on 2011 salaries, no mandate, nobody saying anything. CPO, well, as you just reported, CBO walking out on trade union leaders. It's just a total breakdown of industrial relations because of the complete lack of respect, not just, well, for trade unions and trade union leaders, but to me, even more fundamental is just a total lack of respect for ordinary working people.
Yeah.
So you can you have these negotiations. It's going on for years. It's finally in the court. The UE workers are waiting to have their to have justice, and then the Attorney General intervenes in that, therefore delaying it even further. So these are some of the contradictions that I think still continue to remain unresolved. The other issue is, and I think I raised it here, but I want to put it back because I want people to understand these contradictions. You know, tea and tech. Why am I mentioning tea and tech? I guess I can mention tea and tech and WASA and so on. But since we represent tea and tech workers, I'll speak for tea and tech. You have a situation where recently you would have seen or heard a press conference where by the OWTU highlighting the fact that the government owes tea and tech $600 million.
Yes.
How could you owe a state enterprise that amount of money and then come to tell the population that the state enterprise is not doing well and that it is overstaffed? But what they don't tell you is that politicians and those in government now sending their people with letters to become what are called helpers within the system. These helpers, because they are sent in via the politicians, feel that they can't take instructions from the permanent workforce. So here you have helpers coming into the system, not taking proper instructions from the permanent workforce, and you as the government owing this commission $600 million, and here's what you're going to tell the population: well, it's overstaffed and it's not profitable. And that is a very clear strategy because they do it in tea and tech, they're doing it as a swim call as well. So you have a government, state enterprises, for example, and these state enterprise has government contracts. Okay, so it's circulated. The government then takes these contracts from the state enterprise, give it to a private interest, to private companies, and then tells the population that they are not making a profit or they're not doing well. I mean,
you find that happening very often recently, though.
It's a
growing trend.
Yes, that is correct, and it has grown exponentially because there seem to be a deliberate approach of shifting wealth from the public purse to private pockets, and not your pocket and mine, you know, other people's pocket. And I think we have to be able to identify these truths because we don't talk about it. We spend a lot of time discussing and debating the superficiality, because I listen to a lot of the commentaries on the various radio programs and television programs, and it's the superficiality and not getting down to the root. To the root.
We make each other the problem while the problem itself, it stays there.
The root cause. The root cause. So you have a very efficient public utilities, such as TNTech. Because you can say what you want now. If you remember the old days when electricity gone for days.
Of course.
Now it more or less comes on, and the reason is because the workers are able to work on what I call live wires. See, people don't think about that, you know.
Yeah.
The workers are now working on live wires, so that they don't have to, if they have to fix something, they don't have to shut down electricity for the whole tongue in order to do that. And we have been able to have a reliable supply of electricity because these workers go out in the rain and so on to ensure that we have a reliable supply of electricity. But then the government is going to come to demonize them, sounding like a familiar playbook, right? As they did with Petrotrin. So they will come to demonize these workers to say that the company is not making, the commission is not making, or the commission is not profitable, and that the workers are this and that and the other, when in fact, the truth is, the government owes the commission. They need to pay up. Can you imagine if they paid up their bill? And they need to not use the state enterprise for political patronage. The politicians themselves create the problem, and then when it reached a certain point that is unsustainable, convince everyone that the problem is, I guess, the workers. So I think we have to pay close attention to these developments, because what it will mean over time is that more and more public wealth are going to be siphoned out of the public system, and therefore the ability to provide for citizens by the state is going to become less and less and less, and therefore the most vulnerable are going to continue to have to carry the full burden of economic adjustment.
And in case you're now joining us here on PSA TV, this is the Wake Up Call here with me, Christy Callising, and on set I've got with me Mr. OZZI Warwick, the Chief Education Officer of the OWTU. We're going to toss a really short break right now, and when we come back, we're going to be chatting a little bit about Petrotrin, TNTech, and other matters affecting the trade unions. Stay with us. Welcome back to PSA TV. This is the Wake Up Call here with me, Christy Callising, and on set I've got with me the Chief Education Officer of OWTU, Mr. OZZI Warwick. So in case you're now joining us, we're talking this morning about post-Labor Day celebrations, and also something that I was just talking to you about off-cam. Yesterday, the TNT Chamber of Industry and Commerce held its 2019-2020 Business Outlook Forum. And something stood out to me, something very interesting, something that I think shocked a lot of people. It was the revelation by the CEO of Massey Motors, Miss Natalie. Now, I'm going to quote her, and she said, the company itself was dealt a severe blow when Petrotrin closed down, because what happened was a lot of young people in particular had to return their vehicles when Massey closed down. When Petrotrin closed down. And I think it's something that was overlooked by not just companies itself, but everybody. Yeah. You have now where these are young people going into a company. You automatically think, well, okay, if I'm used to traveling, well, this is my opportunity, let me buy a car. Sure. I think one of the first things that a young person looks at when they start working is, let me get a vehicle.
The first asset, is really their very first asset.
Yeah. Because most of us, we're traveling, so the first thing you want to do is get a car. And now with the closure of Petrotrin, they were forced to give that back. You know,
that is the Petrotrin story is still unfolding.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that the Petrotrin story is going to be the downfall of the current government, because as the story unfolds, you begin to realize the damage that it did. There were lots of young people, Chrissy, who would been thinking of now starting a family, because you now have a decent job, You now have, let's say you've been made permanent, you can now take out a mortgage, you can start a family.
Yeah.
Okay? And all of a sudden, all of that is now taken away from you. And for no justifiable reason, taken away. So you have a lot of young people who have been losing their vehicles, but also there have been a lot of young people who are losing their homes. A lot of families have been destroyed because of this. And therefore, it is that kind of impact that nobody really pays attention to. And I think it's very interesting that for Massey CEO to come out and say it publicly means that it really was a
big.
devastating blow.
Yeah.
And you know, the question would be how, that is just one, how many other businesses will be willing to speak out honestly and truthfully to speak of the real impact that this would have had on their businesses, because it would have. You're talking about 5,000 people. I don't think people have come to terms yet with what that means. And of course, I always, because I have a beef with our current economist, because they spend more time attacking trade unions, to say quite frankly, rather than doing the proper work as economists. Quantify the loss. Quantify what it costs the Southwestern Peninsula in a real economic terms, dollars and cents terms, and stop, you know, just going around the place attacking trade unions for no justifiable reasons. Yes, I have an issue with that. Because when we quantify the cost, and now that's just the actual economic cost, the social cost, the emotional cost as a collective people, the emotional cost, the what it would do to families, what it will do to the social fabric of the Southwestern Peninsula. I mean, these are real things. The other thing is that sometimes in our debates, in our discussions, we forget that at the end of the day, when we say the workers of Petrotrade, the workers of TN Tech, the workers of UE, these are not abstract terms. These are real human beings trying to eke out an existence on salaries from since dating back to 2011. We're now 2019. Can't get their matter completely finished. You have interventions by the Attorney General. You have a government that is willing to literally throw these workers under the bus to get their way, destroying real lives, and then expect the country's productivity to go where? Where do you want the country's productivity to go?
Up, of course.
Yeah, and their only concept of productivity is somehow, if you think about
at
when
the
the discourse is at human expense, and they have this way where the discourse on productivity by government officials as well as the business elite is a very condescending type of discourse. It's one that makes you feel that workers lazy. Just listen carefully to its tone. When they talk about productivity, they talk about punctuality and absenteeism and all of that. They don't talk about the infrastructure of traffic. They don't talk about the fact that workers working on 2010, 2011 salaries could never be motivated. There's no incentive. You now facing you watching your salary, it didn't go nowhere. Yeah. But when you watch the salary, your salary slip, your pay slip, the figure remain constant, but your grocery bill going up. When you watch the rent, the receipt of your rent, that's going up. The cost of transportation, the cost of fuel, all of those things are going up, but your salary remains constant. And therefore, you now have to do what? You know what people doing? Borrowing money from here, there, to find a $20 to send the children to school, borrow a little $100 in order to buy a little groceries for the week. I mean, come on. And then you want productivity to go up.
That's how people are forced to live.
And this is how the majority of Trinbagonians are living in Trinidad and Tobago. So the illusion where you have the Minister of Finance talking about growth and all of this foolishness, and that they're turning the economy around, this means nothing to a person who has to face the landlord, who hiding from the landlord.
No.
Okay? This does not...
Or who could barely buy groceries.
Who could barely buy groceries. Who have to now buy a little half pound of sugar. And remember those days when you have to buy it? That is how most people are buying food at this point, you know. And who benefiting? We're not even putting a huge focus on agriculture and food production.
Oh my gosh.
It is all about
Agriculture
food
always
importation.
gets the least input from this government.
Yes.
I don't know why though.
Well, I think it's the nature of the plantation
they don't
economy.
see the importance of it.
No, it has to do, that's correct. Or even worse, as far as they're concerned, their party financiers are importers. Keep the importers happy and you're good to go. The farmers, you're not sure, might be, they're not going to finance your party. But who will be the
importers? But then we talk about supporting local and everything must be local. Okay.
That's correct. So, I mean, these are the dynamics and the contradictions that, again, I mean, I can't help but keep repeating, because sometimes you have to repeat something over and over because people get so distracted with disinformation. Yeah. That the fact of the matter is that this Trinidad and Tobago paradise, you know, we like to talk about the paradise. It is our way of hiding the truth about our society. And that is, we are living in a very unequal society that has created little or no opportunity for ordinary working people to have a decent life. In other words, a decent job, with a decent pension, a decent terms and conditions. No, what we have now, and where the elites are trying to take us back to, is that you work 10, 12 hours a day, no sick leave, you force yourself to go to work, because if you don't go to work, you're not going to get paid. There is no vacation leave, forget that.
Why do you need a vacation?
Why do you need a vacation? And you literally have to eke out an existence. Yeah. And that is the society that we have. You know, there was a song by Valentino called Place Nice. It's an old calypso. If you get a chance, trust me, go on YouTube, look for that Valentino, Place Nice, and it will shock you when you hear the lyrics of that song. And that song was written, could be in the late 70s, early 80s, but still very relevant, where we have this contradiction of this illusion that, you know, things nice, but it's not nice. The quality of life of most ordinary people in this country, Trinidad and Tobago, in 2019, after 100 years of oil and gas, the fact is that the majority of people live on under $5,000 a month, with rents that are $3,000.
Speaking of salaries, what, in your opinion, is perhaps a good enough salary for the average working person? Well, I know it would vary depending on a lot of things, but for the average person, what do you think is a substantial salary?
Well, I can tell you what isn't. $3,000 to $5,000 isn't.
Yes.
I think we have to go closer to the 10, 11, 12. I think that is where it should be in the context of prices in Trinidad. If you want to live, if you want to have at least a decent, it's not even, I wouldn't even call it middle class.
That's not an extravagant life, no.
I would not even call it middle class, because I'm sure on even 10 or 11, you can't live really, as you say, you would not live a very comfortable life. You live just barely a decent, you'll have a decent life where at least you'll have a decent home, you may have a decent vehicle, you may have, be able to at least do a few things recreational with your family. But that's where it stops.
All right, so we're just about 1 minute to go. So I'm going to ask you your closing comments.
Yeah. Well, my closing comments has to be, again, to really thank all those workers who came out on Labor Day, who have shown the elites of Trinidad and Tobago that as workers, we are not going to roll over. We are going to continue to stand and fight. We are going to fight resolutely, because there's too much injustice in Trinidad and Tobago, and to show that the trade union movement in Trinidad and Tobago continues to be alive, well, strong, and ready to indeed fight for a better Trinidad and Tobago.
And who knows, maybe I may join you all next year for
I think it will be quite an experience.
I would love to experience that. I've only heard about it, never been there, and who knows, might rain next year as well.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.